We are now live on YouTube. So April 10, 2022, with the crew, Mr. Dr. Charlie Cartwright with the background game, going strong as usual. We got the one and only Alvin Brown and myself, Raymond Janartonia. We're about to bring some goodness, some good conversation, this week. And hopefully you guys can benefit from it, grow from it in your leadership, your business, your life. Same thing as we do every single Sunday morning wisdom, or peace and love, or however we call this, So how are you guys today? What are we diving into today, most specifically? What do you guys think?
I've got a little something, but I want to defer to Mr. Brown. He might be, well, let me put it a different way. He's probably on the same wavelength, I'm sure, without even talking to him.
I'm gonna let Dr. Charlie Cartwright because he spoke out real quick. This one's bubbling. Mine's simmering, but his is bubbling. His is on boil. I'm at 211? He's at 212. So I'm gonna let him bubble this one out. But I got one in the back end. If we don't unpack this one, if we unpack this one early, I got another luggage I want to present.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be here, fellas, as always, and everyone that's tuned in. And last week was just a week of culminations, I think, of just so much hard work, blood, sweat, tears, preparation, Sunday morning wisdom calls, and boom, we have some great outcomes. So I received a call, well, not a call, actually. I was in a physical meeting with one of my clients, and we're talking about next steps and setting the course for the coming weeks and training and what she's doing with her organization. So I have a story for you. And they had a foreman that was a workhorse, right? And hey, this guy does really fantastic work. However, we didn't know what to do with him because people hate working with him, hate working for him. People hate him because of his attitude. And he just blows up. And we just have been at a loss of what to do with him. Now, fast forward to last week when she gets a call from her general manager who's out visiting job sites to say, "You're not going to believe this, but I won't name him. But hey, I'm out here at his site," and he says, "Hey, I've read all of Dr. Charlie's stuff. I've read the books he suggested. It's changed my life. I'm a 180. I'm not screaming at anyone anymore. I'm going to love people, care about them, respect them." He was energized, couldn't wait for the next day. And they were blown away because of a 180-degree shift. And so she's like, I'm training their entire leadership team and then their seconds, their chief seconds. So she says, just this one turnaround is worth the entire deal. She's like, if I can help one person to that level, it's worth everything. And, I was sitting there thinking about it. I was kind of blown away because we've only been in session since January. Okay, so it's not like it's been a year's time. But what I know, fellas, is yeah, I'm there and I'm delivering the training, but you guys have your hands on that too. You see, because I gain knowledge and wisdom and insights from you. And is it something that Ray said that hit the switch for him? Is it something that Alvin Brown said that hit the switch for him? Was it a combination that hit the switch for him? We never know. So the reality is, in gathering our information, our preparation, it equips us to better deal with situations and have a better opportunity to say that one thing that's going to flip the switch for another human being. And here's the reality. That's who this guy really is. Okay, that other version was not really him. He's struggling to find his true north, struggling to find his true reality his place in the world and couldn't find it because there's a lot of locked doors. There's a lot of doors that lead nowhere. But when he got in his hallway, his door, and saw the light, he knew exactly what it was. So that's what's so fantastic about what we do and why every single session like this is so valuable, because you just never know that there's a sentence, there's a phrase, there's a quote that literally can change someone else's life. Because when you say that to them, their brain fires and connects all these dots out there, things that happen to them when they're 10 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, 40 years old. All of a sudden, that's the spark that connects all of the dots and say, oh, I get it. I know what to do now. And so it gave me chills talking about it. It gave me chills when she told me the story. But again, it's about us really getting better at what we do and how we do it, and getting really clear on why we do what we do, which is to ultimately help other people and make the world a better place at the bottom line. Okay. And when we have that mission, that insight, that vision, and are committed to this process, great things are going to happen. They're going to happen. So it's just fantastic. It's just fantastic when we can help other human beings. And now, how many guys is that guy going to hit now? Because she's like, everybody on his crew is going to know, whoa, who is this guy? What happened to my old boss? Right? Oh, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be really fantastic. And they're going to ask questions. Hey, I got to ask you, what happened? What are you drinking? Because I want some of that. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the reality of it. So it's so cool, but I'm just so grateful. These years of insight, these years of study, these years of preparation, are paying off in tangible ways. And we don't always see it immediately, but it's happening at all times. And it's just so amazing. It's kind of like that flower that you look at the flower, you saw it yesterday afternoon and it was in the bud. And then the next morning you wake up and you go outside and look at that flower and it's in bloom. And it seemed like it happened overnight, but it happened over time. So that's me, and I'm passing the mic.
And so I'll carry over with this, and I'll let Alvin Brown take over after that. Well, first of all, that's really, really cool. I love hearing things like this and how there's impact being made, even from the smallest things, when we don't necessarily realize how much. And it makes me think of Michael Hyatt. A lot of times this week while going to work, I started, listening to a lot of his content on leadership, and most importantly on vision, self-leadership, and teamwork, and I put out a couple quotes here. It says that self-leadership always precedes team leadership. So a few years ago, you, Dr. Charlie, and Alvin Brown started something. It started with self-leadership, wanting to, grow your leadership, wanting to better your life, to learn every single day, to continue pushing the envelope. And these calls started taking place, one way or another. So it starts by individuals coming together to make a team better, to make more of an impact. I was lucky enough to join this, right? But it started exactly the same way for me, where it was self-leadership before anything else. Always looking for more, always looking to grow, not just for me, but understanding also that whenever the leader gets better, everyone gets better, right? So this is like the perfect example where we come together in these calls and I always take away something, right? Whether it's from Alvin, whether it's from you, whether it's from Al, I always take away something. And whenever I go see my team, or I'm with my son, or I'm with my wife, or anybody else, I can't pinpoint exactly where things are coming from because they come from the collective, right? But that's the cool thing in the end, is that whenever we have this will and this openness to grow ourselves, it opens up this door, you know, to take in whatever is being given to us. And that's how impact is truly made in the end. So this is like a perfect example where a whole team, you know, a whole team is benefiting, you know, from this person literally changing completely. But as you said, this person was always this, you know, it was always this. They just weren't necessarily ready or open to receive the information. Now they were, just because of your approach. And it all started obviously with your self-leadership, wanting to learn more, and then coming into these calls and everything else that you do to continually push the envelope. All right. One thing that Michael Hyatt also said is that words have power, not only to impact others, but most importantly to impact us, you know? So every single situation, I find myself, and I look around me also when I look at great leaders that I like to, you know, look at and study, I find they're note takers. I find they're very curious. And in every single situation, there's something to be taken away from it. I remember when we first started these calls, we could be talking about ants, you know, and there was some type of lesson, you know, that we could find from like just talking about ants. So I'm like, what is this? You know, but it's the truth. It's the truth, right? So words, and even in the smallest things, you know, there's so much power if we're willing to listen. And when we are, it creates impact for others. And lastly, what I wanted to say is that I truly believe that nothing great in this life, in business, or in anything we do in a family, nothing great happens without a team, right? Team is the most important thing, whether it's a team of 100 or a team of 2, you know, we can't do anything by ourselves, you know? So I'm grateful for this team, you know? By ourselves, what we can do is do the first step every single day. But after that, being curious, humble, open enough to take whatever else is out there. There's so much more out there. And when we work together, when we combine that collective, you know, knowledge or whatever it is, great things happen. So I truly believe in that. And just to tell you guys, I had a meeting with like all my coordinators yesterday, you know, and first thing I talked about with them was vision, right? A vision I have for a team. But at the same time, what I did is that I told them there's a lot of blanks to be filled into that vision. And I'm not the person to fill in these blanks, they are. So this vision, we have to create it together, right? So I kind of gave them the vision and I told them, put your eyes in there, put your heart in there. And this is what's going to make our vision complete. And once we have that, we'll bring it down to the next level of leadership. They'll do the same thing to the next level of leadership. So this whole vision that we have, I will have the backing and the full support of every single leader, because I understand I can't do I can't do this by myself, right? It needs to be from a team. So that's probably like one of the biggest things I find that I've learned and that I think about every single day. I think team. Anything great that happens through team. And the first thing we should do is start with self-leadership so we can get better, but really so that the team can get better. And to always make sure to focus on the team. So this is me, and I'm passing the mic.
Yeah, amazing epiphanies there. I got a list, and then I want to show you an example of collective consciousness at the end, how, you know, we don't even have to have this, what is this archaic system we call Zoom. You know, Charlie and I invented something else, on-scene force called mental connection. So anyways, here's the deal. Great conversation. Charlie, I must say the one thing that I would advise your client on, and to then deliver to her client, is There's no such thing as I read this and I'm 180. I love to use the word, just like Alcoholics Anonymous, you're always an alcoholic. So the minute you think, oh, I did a 180, man, one book, one movie, one word, it's just setting you up, because you may be having a couple good days and then something triggers you and you slide back to the old behavior and then you beat yourself up because, gee, I thought I had it. Almost like someone who's going on a diet. They're doing great and then they had one slip and now they're like, oh, I feel so bad about myself. I might as well keep going that way. So if you can just let them know that, hey, we're a work in progress. Enjoy this change, enjoy this journey, but I want you to realize, boom, it's a constant, because he may stop reading the book, may stop listening to the thing saying that I'm good, and I kind of get a little when I hear people go, oh, I saw it, I went to the show and I'm completely changed. My life, go easy. It's a marathon. This is not a sprint. So anyway, just one thing I would advise, and that shows humility in the journey too, when we do that. Dr. Hill, we have a mentor, a mutual mentor. He's been my longtime mentor for 15, 16 years or more. And he said one thing, as you were saying, Ray. He said, one idea well executed will change your life forever. One idea well executed will change your life forever. And that's one of his four key one of his four key things he would say. Because it's true. When you read a book, you don't need, listen, when we go to seminars, when we listen to this today, whoever is listening, you don't need 10 ideas to change your life. You actually need just one idea. Execute that one. You may have 10, you may have heard 10, but you just need one. Act on one. You can't act on 10. You can't make 10 changes right away. Act on one idea, execute it well, consistently, change your life forever, then go to the next idea and make that incremental change along the way. So one idea well executed will change your life forever. So that's one of the bullets I wrote. Yes, sir. I love the idea. Self-leadership precedes, overall leadership. Is not the truth. Because at the end of the day, you can't give what you don't have. You can't pour from an empty cup. I love it when couples or someone getting into a relationship, oh, he doesn't say this to me or doesn't say this the way I want to say it or something. And they don't realize that if that person has never been, no one said, I love you to them, or or in their entire life, they've never been given what you have been given, maybe love, maybe unconditional, maybe whatever it is. It's next to impossible for that person to find it in themselves to give you a compliment. That's why, that's one of the reasons why I go ahead and do what I do without worrying about haters. Because you know why? I realize that a hater may have never been encouraged, may have been around people who are cutting people up. Their group of people are critical, judgmental. And so they learn that. So they're actually afraid they don't know how to give up someone a compliment. It feels weird. This is why people end up with people who abuse them, because if they ever, like say someone, male or female, keeps picking a certain partner, and you wonder, geez, why do they keep picking that same? It's the same change in name. It's the same behavior. Well, that's who they feel comfortable with. That's who they are more. That's their standards, right? If someone comes along and treats them differently in a better way, they'd be weirded out by that. What's wrong with them? What's going on with this? This is weird. Let me go and find someone who matches my self-concept. So you can't give what you don't have. So yeah, you can't lead people if you've never been led or never allowed you. A soldier, like a general, you take yourself, Ray or Dr. Charlie. The only reason why you're great leaders is because you allowed yourself to be led, either in coaching in football or started at the bottom, you work your way to the top. And through that working your way to the top, you're picking up tips, strategies, ways of doing things. And that one coach who stuck in your mind even to this day, you like the way they did it, so you adapted that style. So you must be self-leadership. A general was a soldier once, at some point, right? A coach was a player. So, you must definitely develop your own leadership style, and leadership must start with you. And I wrote here, with your family and leadership, we can't forget that leadership is more than at work. Leadership is your family, leading your family, because whether you're male or female, your actions, the way you show up, is leadership. You're giving your family the signal that this is how our culture is. This is how we as a family operate. And it's not through a manual, it's through your actions, right? Because, we have all seen companies. I'm working with a lady now working at a large company, worldwide large, not only to Canada, but US large company. And I am very surprised at the behavior that goes on in that workplace. I'm shocked that in today's world, it still goes on. But I know humans are humans, and you can create all your mission statements and all your, things that sound good. But if that's not seeping down to the community, it's maybe it works at the top level where they're influenced by the leader who created it. But you got to get that thing, as I like what you did, Ray, where you said, start with the top and it's going to filter down. It has to. That's where you start. You don't go down to the people and start to, share these things, bypassing the people who are leading them. You go right to your leaders. You take care of your 2, they'll take care of their 4, they'll take care of their 6, 8, work their way all the way down. But it really has to start with your key people, because they're going to influence. And those people are going to look to those leaders if it's lip service, right? You don't come up with this great mission statement and this is what we're going to do. Meanwhile, your people we all can see. Remember back in the day, a few months ago, a year ago, Ellen, right? Her people were doing all these things, and who gets the blame? Ellen. She's now canceled her show, right? Because the culture, she missed it. She probably focused on a few at the top, or, actually probably missed it, period. Just trusted that it was going okay. And then boom, just filtered right down to the people, and they were being mistreated. And next thing you know, they hung her out. Because I don't know about any of her leadership team. I don't know their names. I just know Ellen. And everyone, she's in the forefront with the social media. Everyone's attacking her. I knew she was like that. Whoa, so now she's canceled her show. Team, we're social beings. Okay. So as you said, we need a team. But we're social beings, and all the way humans work is through culture, through disseminating information, through stories. The village doctor, or the whatever it is, it was disseminated through stories told by the village elder, and that communication went through, and it got delivered down through the generations, and that led to survival of the tribe. And maybe it was, a lesson on moral lesson. It was a lesson on how the tribe got started. But lessons are delivered through teams, through your culture, through all the way down. So team is hugely important for survival. A culture, that's how you build a culture. That's how survival happens. So then I wanted to, ironically, I don't know if we can share the screen here. Have I got share? Let me know if I'm ready. Because I wanted to show everybody why we are lucky. And I quickly designed this diagram. It's rough. It's in the rudimentary draft. And it just shows why we need to work on ourselves, why we need to, and this comes from Dr. Charlie's his example that the guy wasn't who he was showing up as, but now he's getting closer to who the original person that he is. So I'll show you real quick. I created this here. So here we are. Why we need to work on ourselves. Why? Because the chances are very good you're going to be screwed up. All of us, because we're coming from a mom and a dad, right? Evolutionary, mom and dad. You're counting that mom and dad weren't influenced by mom and dad who came from a different era, slavery or abuse or tough times or something else. So you're going back, and I could go take this back, but you're getting a generational influence of what was going on during those times. Like, so again, Irish slaves, abuse, the people from today, the parents, what they see today in Ukraine is going to influence the generation going forward because of the time they're in. The people who were born in the pandemic and their parents were born in the pandemic are going to influence. That's why a lot of generations, boomers, I think, came off of the industrial age generations. And then they came off of the depression, where you learn to save money, you're cheap out, and right now the kids today are coming off of the, spend it while you only live once generation. So by the time it gets to us, we have to work on ourselves because we're on layering generations of belief systems that worked great. And by the way, these things actually serve, it's all contextual because they served a purpose at some point in that generation, but they stopped serving it now in the 80s. The 1940s information worked for 1940s, but it doesn't work for 1980. 1980 works in 1980, but it doesn't work for 2000. And the 2000 information doesn't work for now because we have technology and we have so many things where, Elvis shook his hips at one point and everyone thought that was the end of the world, right? But now it's like we have there's some hoes in this house, right? And, the WAP, that's now allowed on, and we can pick any other song. But what I'm saying is, Mary Tyler Moore being a divorcee was a tough thing on TV. Whoa, not a divorced woman. So again, we've changed. So as we continue to move forward, we have to work on ourselves. I have to work on me because I'm coming off of a single mom from Jamaica, and she's coming off of whatever she came off of that made, her the way she is, and she's going to tell me about her reality and so on and so on and so on. And I have to check that reality that she gave me. Does it work still? Is it for me? So on and so on. So you get the idea. It's a very, so when Dr. Charlie said the way this idea sparked me and tied in is this man is uncovering things that were given to him. So here he is. Now, Dr. Charlie gives him an idea and it's like, whoa, wow, that changed because he gave him something new. And now that's going to go forward into his family. And so, but I thought this is where it ties in, right? So yeah, you can't lead if this is why it's funny when people say, oh, that personal development stuff, I don't know, woo woo, and it's a bunch of both, right? Okay, that's what you think the same brain that created your problem can unsolve your problem. That's cool. I'm good. All right. But it can't. You have to self-develop, personal mastery. So that, not much to share there, guys. I got nothing. So just hand it back.
Wow. It's got me deep in thought there. So I love all those quotes, Ray. Those are fantastic thoughts on leadership. And then the gentleman's name you said is Michael Hyde or High?
Hyatt.
Hyatt.
Yeah.
Hiatt.
Hyatt. Yes,
All
a book. It's called the Vision Driven Leader. Super interesting guy.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna check him out. So yeah, this journey to Alvin's point. It's ongoing, and I fell into that trap as a younger leader. Oh, I got the book, and I read The Secret. Whatever. This is the book, and boom, ran, and not knowing that. I was on my training wheels, and I wanted to jump. I just got out of my training wheels, and I wanted to jump in an F1 and take off, right? One of those Formula One cars. And hey man, you just got out of training wheels. You were riding a trike, 2 weeks ago. Now you want to drive Formula One. You know what I mean? But I didn't realize that's what I was doing. And so it is a process, but it's a beautiful process for sure. So I need to really emphasize the journey in my training, that hey, this is a journey we're all on, and understand there's going to be checkpoints, there's going to be milestones, there's also going to be roadblocks, right? Write that down. Then so your last diagram there was fascinating to me, because I never looked, I mentally thought back to my great grandparents, but never thought about it in the diagram format. And they're probably people, they're potentially people that are watching this call that could actually know their great grandparents right now, can still be alive. Mine aren't. I met one of my great grandparents. Okay. But some, not all of my great grandparents were slaves, which is crazy to think about. That's only 3 generations ago. So, coming out of slavery, people weren't thinking about reading, Think and Grow Rich. Okay. Weren't thinking about having an iPhone. Weren't thinking about all the things that we have an opportunity to accomplish. Yeah, for sure. So I was in Dallas last week. Was part of the week I was in Dallas, and I had a couple of fantastic conversations with Uber drivers. Okay. And both these drivers were driving the Uber Black car. And one of the reasons why I got the black car is because the cheaper version was no drivers available. I'm like, I don't have time. Boom, I'm gonna pay double to get this Uber driver that can be here in 3 minutes, because I have places to go, people to see, right? And so get in the car and driving, and it was so fantastic because these guys were, had immigrated to the United States and had graduated, moving up. The one gentleman on my way back to the airport was from Ethiopia and came to the United States and was washing dishes in St. Louis, Missouri. Then he moved up to a cook, and then boom, and he started driving a cab. Now he's an entrepreneur and driving his own Uber and doing very well. And he's talking about having executive clientele in his car and listening to what they say and how they operate and how they move, the vocabulary and the words they use, and really assimilating those things. But the thing that really stood out was he said, hey, I work with African Americans coming into this country, and there was always a lot of complaining about racism. And he said, it's true, racism is this. I've seen it, I've felt it, I've experienced it. However, it's still a winnable game. It's still a winnable game. We're going to have to work harder and do some things. And how this guy, brought himself through all this and was speaking to legislators. He's representing over 800 cab drivers in Dallas with different languages and But he said, hey, he said, some of the people I represent are Palestinians. Some of the people I represent are from Israel. He said, there's a conflict there. But, getting these people to understand that, hey, we've got a common mission here for greater good, getting their rates raised and things like that. And so, again, it's a process to achieve. He didn't come to the country and start driving a black car, right? He came to the country, and the humility allowed him, hey, I'm going to wash dishes and I'm going to learn. And, oh, I can do that job in the kitchen. I'm going to cook. And then he started cooking, and I'm going to learn. He was always working very hard at what he did, but always learning to take the next step. Then the Uber driver that picked me up from the airport to my hotel, again, he's like, yeah, people come over here and they drive Uber, and in 2 weeks they turn in the car and they quit. I can't do that. I'm not making any money. Yeah, you can go over here and sit for 5 hours and not get a ride. He said, but I know the patterns. So I know when I need to be in downtown Dallas. I know when I need to be at the airport. You see, I know the pattern. I understand. Student of the game, right? Student of the game, and performing at a high level. So hey, when I'm on shift, when I'm on the job, I'm making money because I know when to be there and where to be. Not just the when, but the where. So I always have somebody in my car. I don't know what these other people are talking about. This is what I did. And he graduated the black car because, of course, higher level of clientele. I learned things. They're in the back seat. We have conversations. So these guys just aren't driving the car silently, staring at the road. Every time somebody gets in their car is an opportunity for them to learn. And so the guy from Ethiopia peppered me. Like, he asked me what I did for a living, peppered me with questions all the way to the airport. What was that? Like, he wrote a quote down before he got out of the car to get my bags. What's that quote again you gave for Abraham Lincoln? I'm going to use that. And so I get chills thinking about that too, because I love that process, that hunger. Okay. We've got to develop an appetite for advancement. Okay. And when we understand that and develop that appetite and start eating at that table, it's an insatiable appetite. You want more and more and more. We become insatiable about eating knowledge, about gaining wisdom and understanding, and how to practically apply what we've learned. Success is inevitable. It's inevitable. So that's me. I'm gonna jump down off this soapbox now.
This is the type of stuff that gets me excited, because we're all very connected in so many ways, different things that we talked about today, from what you just talked about, but also when we go back, you talked about great grandparents, right? On both sides, I've learned, recently that my great grandparents on the one side, one of them is half German, the other one is probably full on German, like literally, right? And you could just even think of the whole history, behind that and how that came to be, right? Yesterday, I was at my parents' house. Actually, before I talk about that, I'll talk about something else, okay? That diagram you showed, Alvin, okay, starting from us, then mom, dad, all of that. When I was a kid and I was learning to bike, on training wheels, and my father eventually took off the training wheels, I was so afraid at first that what I used to do is that when I lost control, I would take my hands and feet off the bike and just scream, right? And I just ran straight into a fence. I remember, and my father would tell me, like, what are you doing? Just keep your hands on, on the steering wheel. And now I'm teaching my son. Basically, he's got the training wheels on. And I tell him, like, before we even go out, because he's the type of kid, like, I get every kid's like that. He only wants to win. Okay. So I want to introduce him to losing, so he gets some perspective. So before we even go, I tell him, hey, Noah, you're going to fall today. Like, you're probably going to fall multiple times today. That's all right. It's part of it. So, like, now he's not afraid of it. And I saw him fall, he puts his hands, he gets back up, he's smiling, right? But one way or another, that came from my father kind of teaching me that through experience. So now that my son can be further along than I was, me, I just took off my hands and feet and screamed, right? Him, he puts his hands down and he's good. He just gets back up, gets right back on the bike. So that's one small example. But why I'm going back to this is, as we're talking about this, it brings back so many memories, because we went to my parents' home yesterday, me, my wife, and my son. And my father's hip really, really hurts right now. Okay, so he's often very silent just because he lives in pain all the time, right? So he's waiting for surgery all the time. But yesterday, he was very talkative for some reason. And we were just talking about, the past, saying how he's so proud. And he was telling me how he remembers we used to buy secondhand cars all the time, right? Secondhand cars all the time. Because actually yesterday, before we went to my parents' house, I went to the dealership with my wife. We got 2 brand new cars, coming in this summer. And my father was talking about how when he was teaching me how to drive, okay, we had a car. I was on the highway with this car, and the steering wheel just went dead, like literally, on the highway. And he was telling me how we had to buy some of these cars, because we couldn't afford anything else at that time. And he knew the danger of it, but that's kind of what our reality was. And now he sees kind of where we're at, and he's like, this is how things should be. Like, we were here at the same time, right? But we worked really hard so you guys can start off here, And just thinking about these things that I've forgotten, I was literally driving on the highway, like we didn't know what was gonna happen. And that was our reality. That's completely crazy to think about. And my grandfather, so his father, died a few years ago back in Cameroon. And my father told me, you know what? He lived 94 years old. And my father has like nothing from his dad, like not even a tie, nothing, right? So that bothers him to this day. But now he knows that if he leaves all the stuff that they've worked up for, that would come down to us, he's like, wow, So in just little moments like that, it gives me perspective out of where we're from and how we take away some things, good and bad, from every generation. Him, because he came from nothing, literally, education is like his thing, education. I believe in education too, right? But one of the first things he was telling me is like, hey, this new position you have, Ray, you'll learn so much. This will happen. You know what? You could probably go do like your master's and this and a PhD while you're working here. And as I listen to him, I tell him, for what? I mean? What is that gonna do for me? Like, I hire people with MBAs and like they and I don't even know what they did in school. Like when I talk to them, So it's just a different mindset. My mother, on the opposite, as I look back, my mother was always the one telling me, Raymond, you don't need permission from nobody to do what you want to do. You don't need to say no apologies for being who you are, right? So that was kind of like her mindset that was giving to us, right? So it's just a blend of these two. And as I look at us and where we're from, or anybody where we're from, we talked about self-leadership at first, and we talked about teamwork. One way or another, like we come into this world We're just blank canvases. We come from something. As you said, Dr. Charlie, greatness is our default, right? But we're going to be given some things, good and bad. And at some point, through self-leadership, we have to decipher what serves us and what doesn't, you know? And that takes a lot of work. It's definitely difficult, but I love how, like, from one generation to another, there are things that are passed down that if we look at them the right way, we can definitely grow. Just like my son falling down, having no problem getting back up, and me, I was just yelling, screaming out of control for no reason, right? For no reason. So just by talking about all this, I'm super excited. I like it. This type of subject really fires me up. And there's a song I actually listen to. My wife always laughs when I listen to this song. It's called The Wild Things. Wild Things. I don't even know who sings that song, but it says that we will leave the empty chairs of those who say we can't sit there, right? So at every level, there are certain chairs maybe you want, and certain people, whether they're right or wrong, may say you can't sit in that chair. Well, you can create your own chair, you know? Nothing stops anyone from doing that. And one way or another, I believe inside of us, there is something wild. There is something that cannot be tamed. A lot of times, like, we tend to keep that thing inside. Maybe we should let it out a little bit more. You know, that's our true self. Maybe we should let it out. Maybe we should, you know, be that wild thing we were born to be. So I'm just very grateful in the end, because I realized that I forget certain things that I should not forget, like driving in the highway with that car, you know, and years later being able to go and just get some new cars, not even like really thinking about it, but I'm wow. And another thing I want to tell you guys too, that comes back, is growing up, being in sports, my brothers and I remember, like, I've been with my wife now for 18 years. So we grew up together. And I remember her mom used to bring me food all the time, you know, because my parents worked really hard, but I couldn't understand why we never had money. I was like, why don't we never have money? Why? I go home after practice, man, we used to take the bus, the metro, walk just to go to school. From there, go to practice. From there, come back home. I would leave home probably at like 6 a.m., come back home with my younger brother at like 11:30, midnight sometimes, and having to go back, you know. But my father, having grown up in a place where he had to do everything on his own, he kind of drove that spirit into us, where this is kind of how we operated. But I remember not understanding why we never had money. And now I get it, is that my parents, while they were here, everything they had almost, they sent it back, you know, home for all these years. So to a point where sometimes, as growing up athletes, we barely even had to eat, right? But these are like decisions they had to make that I have so much respect for. And now, listen, all my grandparents are gone. They get to take care of themselves now. We get to take care of them. But as a teenager growing up, I was pissed off. You know, I would come home, I'm like, how do you work so hard and I can't even eat? You know, what's going on? But now I get it, right? But they had to take that in also, right? They had an understanding I didn't have. Now I have perspective, I can get it. And everything they did allows us to be who we are, right? And that's amazing. So nothing that you guys do is for granted, you know? Nothing that we do is for granted, whether it's for a family or other people that we get to lead. It does echo, you know, it echoes in big ways. And I just think it's crazy, you know, going from a great grandfather on one side that's full German, you know, then being super proud to be Cameroonian, Canadian, all of that. It's just, it's never erased, but kind of like it is, you know? So it's, yeah, this is just my 2 cents, telling you a bit about like history that just came out as I was listening to you guys talk. And I think it's so cool, you know, to see how when we take what's given to us, we're so lucky in the end. We start off further along, whether we want it or not. It's kind of our responsibility to see it, you know, and make the most of it for sure. This is me, and I'm passing the mic.
All right. A lot there. 1 second here. So going back to what Dr. Charlie was talking about, these Uber drivers and insatiable need for knowledge. You know, sometimes we have to be careful of privilege and entitlement. So they arrived to this country, this insatiable need for knowledge, because they know, they feel they're behind the 8 ball of having access to knowledge. I remember we were talking about earlier about how it's a tribe is important and a group is important. And that's how we learned, right? Because in order to enslave someone, what you do is you take away this ability to transfer information. And you leave them dark and give them the information that you want to give them. You disseminate that truth to them because they don't have the truth of the elders to pass it forward. So, you know, in this country, Canada, that slavery wasn't the same power it had in the US, because you had the Underground Railroad and, you know, a little bit more freedom. However, the indigenous people here felt that they separated them from their culture and then, you know, instituted a new language to them, and this is the way you should be talking and so on. And they lost that. And that's a very lost culture here in Canada. They're in a tough way, only because it took away the ability to transfer culture throughout. So at some point it got, you know, diluted and so on. So they're in a rough way. But that's the coming back to the idea of why you need your culture, you need your team, you need to disseminate this information down the line and so on and so on. So I wrote here with Dr. Charlie is, you know, we must remain hungry. We must remain insatiable, because I think, and we've all seen it, you know, I have a family member, a younger family member, who they were born here and got comfortable, is still comfortable, went to school, but didn't, and I heard the friends are like this as well. They get funding to go to school, but when the funding comes, they would sign a paper, go to the first day of class and get the money and never go back, right? Never go back, to just get the money. Instant gratification, spent it, just keep recycling that. So taking the government money subsidy to go learn and not realizing that, oh my goodness, can you imagine that, right? Just taking the few $1,000s in their hand, spending that and never go to school. Oh man, like some people are dying for education, to change, you know, change their life. But here they are getting paid. Someone's actually paying to give you something people died for, but you're taking it and, you know, fill it.
Yes, looks like he froze a little bit, so we'll be waiting for him to come back.
Am I back? I
there
can
he
hear
is.
you. I can
Yes,
hear you.
he is.
Yeah, you're
Perfect.
back now.
Okay, that's very unusual that my internet. So what I was saying was, Dr. Charlie, by this, we must stay insatiable. we must stay hungry. Never, never, especially when it comes, miss a meal, but never miss a chance to learn. You know what I mean? Because that's how people got freedom. That's how the way you enslave somebody is to take away knowledge. That's how you enslave a generation. Take away knowledge, take away the ability to learn from the past, hand down the cultural learnings from your ancestors. So always be insatiable about learning. Always, they say the person who knows how to read but doesn't is no better than the person who's illiterate, right? Because you just refuse to apply it. So yeah, it's essential that you feed your brain, that you hand this down, that you share, you pass it forward. So that when Dr. Charlie left that nugget that man wrote down, what he did there was he actually tipped him a couple $100 out of his pocket. When you left that and left the cab, he wrote it down because you probably dropped your wallet. And he thought, oh, look at this. He dropped his wallet. Let me take. Right. So, you dropping $100 in the cab isn't even as valuable, because it's a big deal. I'll buy a meal and I'm done. That 100 is done. But you just left him something that he can pass on and on. So some wisdom that probably go generations. Yeah, that 100 would be done in like an hour. When I stop and grab something to eat and pick up some gas, it's over. But that knowledge you left him is invaluable. So, Ray, you said your dad left your grandpa left your dad not even a tie, but that goes back to, did someone leave your dad's dad a tie or anything else? So he thought it's not necessary to leave him anything. For him, it's no big deal. He didn't feel any guilt about leaving your dad nothing, because he wasn't left nothing, and so on. And so that's what I mean about that generational. So your dad now is breaking that. Here, I'm going to leave you whatever. Here's this thing I'm going to leave you. So he's breaking that, and you're going to leave your son. You're already leaving your son something your dad gave you, the ability to ride with keep your hands on, right, and not be afraid of, you know what I mean? So and yeah, your dad taught you bravery. This is why you're in love with bravery, because you're getting that from your mom too. Never mind your dad, your mom. So this is why you are in love. Your namesake is bravery, and that's why you love that. And isn't that crazy that we call that a wild thing? You said, this idea that being yourself is being the wild thing. It's crazy, right? Like, going after what you want. And I remember you talking about your first car, your car you have now, buying these cars. And the permit, I had to give myself permission to actually own something new. Because I remember I used to felt I remember when I had my first car, my first brand new, like off the lot, you can smell it. It smells like a brand new car, the whole 9 yards. I felt really awkward. I would rather, if you asked me about it, I'd feel awkward. You know what I'd feel better at? You asked me about, oh, is that a new car? And I said, yeah, no, I fixed it up. I had to put the motor in. I had to do the brakes. I felt better telling you that, because then I know it wasn't new. I had to work for it. I had to have a story why I have it. All right. Those are all hand-me-downs, right? Is that permission to, this is why you walked all those miles and all those left at 6, came home at 11. Not because I really don't believe it's because they were sending money back. I believe it's because that's what they believed they deserved, to walk that, because you could do both, right? Your parents could have done both, could have sent the money and lived very well, because your dad is an Olympic wrestler, your mom is amazing. So, but you see, in their mind, they had to send that back because that was a generational belief system. I remember sitting with my accountant, Jewish accountant, and he said, at their table, this is the talk about generation. He said at their table, when they sat for Sunday dinner with their grandpa, you know what they talked about? Money. But it didn't talk about the way that my generation would have talked about it, like lack of it and, not enough. And someone else owns the bag. No, what they talked about is, he said when as a bar mitzvah, when he got his money, the guy invested it in an account that would give him this much percentage. I'm like, what? You give money to me, my first paycheck, I'm buying stuff. Are you kidding me? I'm buying stuff because I never had it. And no one ever sat at a table and handed down this wisdom of, oh, no, you don't spend that. You invest it. You buy a property, you start looking at GIC, whatever, right? This is the kind of conversation. So I started having conversation with my kids. We play this game called Cash Flow from Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. We start playing that, and now they've changed. They're thinking about money a whole different way than I do. My son works at a bank where they're talking, he's seeing people, collections, and people are running up debt, and he's seeing all that, So, it generational as we go forward. So now you're being the benefactor of your mom and dad being at a different place in their life when they believe a different thing. And now they're, putting into you, and these people that you're leading are getting that benefit. They don't realize actually they're getting wisdom from Cameroon, right? They think they're getting it from Ray, right? They're getting Cameroonian wisdom and wisdom from Africa and wisdom from, like it's amazing, right? They're getting, Dr. Charlie and I are getting wisdom from an Olympian, Cameroon Olympian, so we just continue to hand that down. And, and we have the same thing here where if you made it to Canada, whether you're rich or poor, it's your right and your obligation to send a barrel back. Any Jamaican listening to this, I don't know if any other cultures do this, West Indians, you'll go to a West Indian store and you'll see barrels. They sell barrels that you put, and you buy those barrels and you put stuff in and send it home, because that is just the way you do it. You send barrels back. So, these are all cultural things that we bring back, and this is how we're affected by culture. This is why I believe, and this is a whole other conversation, but this is why I believe in everyday challenging the way I think. I do it even if you drive this certain way every day to work, you have a pattern of driving to work, drive another way. And let's see what else you're missing. Because the act of driving another route is signal to your brain that I need to do something different, that I need to change things, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So me changing the direction of my route to work is actually me looking at my life going, okay, do I have to react when Ray says this? When I go to a party and someone steps on my foot, is it time to fight? Or is he just stepped on my foot and it's hey man, I'm sorry. Or is it time to fight? Because that was a signal back in the day of a time, oh, you stepped on my foot, let's go. All right. But is that what it means? So I have to challenge myself. When you look at me this way, does that mean you're thinking that about me? Or do you have to challenge that? When I'm doing a certain thing, I even love things like moving my furniture around. Like right now, this view that you guys are seeing, it's a different view. Am I right? For the two fellas that are on here, it's a different view. What did I do? I looked at my space because someone challenged me, and I looked at my space and I went, does it have to be like this? So I took out something that's attached to this desk I'm at, that came with the desk, but I took it off and went, oh man, I actually really like this. It's better, you see, but I was stuck with the way it came. And now I took it away and it's like, this is better. So I love to challenge everything. And does it work still? If it works and it's moving me forward, I'll keep it. But if driving this route doesn't work every day, but it's a route I've driven forever, why not drive a different route? wow, this one's actually better view. I've different, you know what I mean? So again, going back to our conversation, is challenging what you thought is norm. Is it working for you? Or is there another way you could do it? Is it a better way, a more efficient way? Is this thought process you're having getting you where you want to go? So, yeah, and we're lucky. The last thing I wrote down is we're lucky to be living, Ray, I think you finished that. We're lucky to be living this way, and it's the way you're living now and enjoying these comforts of the car. And soon we won't even have there'll be self-driven cars. So, then you're, again, every generation gets, the more we challenge and disseminate information, that every generation but after us gets luckier. So awesome. That's my input.
It's great stuff, guys. This is really great stuff. I was sitting here thinking about revisiting some of the lessons that my grandparents taught me, because now my perspective has changed. So there may be some more nuggets laying there that I didn't see, some more diamonds laying there that I didn't see a decade ago. I need to revisit those lessons to make sure that I gleaned everything that was left for me. Okay. I really love that. And then, here's something that's amazing when you think about the fact that we're all here, either physically on this call or you're watching this call, is that your ancestors had the tenacity that it took for you to come along and have the opportunity that you had, right? Because coming to this country, what did they have? My ancestors, I don't know what they brought physically, but I know mentally and psychologically, they brought tenacity that they were going to survive and try to position their future generations for success. And they didn't know what that looked like or meant. They know it meant that they needed to persevere. So whenever we take full advantage of the opportunities that are before us, we honor our ancestors by doing it. We honor them. And when we don't take full advantage of the opportunities that we possess, we dishonor them because they gave us this opportunity. And so that's something that I really keep in mind, that the vision my grandparents had for me was hazy in the fact of what it would look like. However, they wanted to position me, they wanted to prepare me to take advantage of what opportunities would be available as I came of age. And I think I can say they accomplished their mission. And with that, I'll pass it back to our host.
Yes, sir. And I wrote something down. I wrote down, be confident enough in yourself and your beliefs to challenge them every single day, right? And I think that's what it's all about in the end. When we're talking self-leadership and all that stuff, is being, okay, I know what I know and I'm confident in it. But you know what? I'm not going to shy away from speaking to Alvin or Dr. Charlie or someone with a completely different opinion, and listen, really listen, not just dismiss it, but okay, let me challenge what I believe to see if I'm wrong or if I'm right. And that's how growth happens, from connection, from openness, from conversation, from conversation. So are we having that conversation with ourselves first? And are we having it with others and the world around us? Because we all have history, right? We all have history, but we also all have a future, and we can't go to the future by staying, in the past or staying what we know. So great conversation. You talked about honor, Charlie. That's a big word. I've come to study a little bit more. I actually found a book. There it is. I'll show you the book. It's called The Honor Key. really interesting book, just like diving into this concept of honor. And as I learn from this concept, it's like super interesting stuff. And what I understand about honor too is that it multiplies. The more you give it, the more it multiplies. And yeah, great conversation. I'm fired up for this week. I definitely am.
You
Don't
know,
have much. Yeah,
I was just gonna add something real quick while you said challenging. So here's a really simple idea, but it brings it home. Do bad things happen in threes? Did anybody ever heard that one? Bad things happen in threes? No, you never heard that, Dr. Charlie?
I've heard it for sure. I've heard it. Yeah,
many times, right?
Said a lot around.
A lot. Yeah, bad things happen in threes. You know, someone will say, "Oh, well, that's two. At least I only got one more." Right? And we end up walking around looking for it all day long, missing the 10 that are good, but you're looking for the one more. Because if once that one more happened, then I'm gonna have a good day. Just need one more thing. Right? Never challenging idioms and sayings that we're handed down, right? The rich are evil. Those can't get a rich man to the Ebenezer or some other whatever it is, into the heaven and all. There's so many. So we have to challenge. Challenge what we said, and then that pretty much ties into what you were saying at the end there. Just handing down. So when you go tomorrow, to your lead those, how many people are there now? 120?
120, yeah.
120 people.
50 volunteers, so 170 really.
Yeah.
And just without cutting you, like one really cool thing is that now I'm being around, I'm also learning from high execs who are leading like 500, 600 people.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm calling them and they answer. And I guess I'm the annoying guy because I keep calling them. I just ask questions because every time I speak to them, I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. Now I want to know, right?
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah.
So,
And remember when you go on Monday, remember you're taking your ancestors with you. When you lead, you're not leading alone, You're taking all the lessons. Your dad wrestled, again, that high level, you're taking that with you. So go in there confidently knowing you're delivering generations of leadership, your mom. So anyways, I think that's pretty cool.
That's interesting you say that, Alvin, because I remember Maya Angelou talking about when she went in the meeting, she took her ancestors with her. And I never got it until you just said that.
Yes, sir.
This conversation, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I didn't get it. First time I heard it, I'm like, oh, I know what she was throwing down now.
Yeah, you see, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes I'll take a quote like that and leave it in my library for years. And then
yeah.
Jim Rohn said profits are better than wages. And I didn't get that until now in my life. Right. Mm-hmm. Don't take, and Jay-Z, all these celebrities will say, you don't have to pay me the full fee. I'll take it in profit. Because that's right. Perpetuity. It goes on and on and on. Profits are better. And I didn't get that because I wasn't there.
Yeah. There are lots of things that are lost, let's say, in our communities that used to be done that we don't necessarily understand. But like, let's say my parents, they're having a house built in my father's village right now in Cameroon. But like, we barely ever go there.
Yeah.
But it's important, for him to have something built there because his father is buried there. His ancestors are buried there. So like, it means something that whenever we do decide to go, if we do go to that village, there's somewhere for Noah to be, or his children's children, or whatever. So that's like the way they're thinking, right? And I'm like, wow, okay, that's interesting. You know, like, yeah, it's important to have something built.
Put a stake in the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. Put a stake in the ground, man. And then, you know, later on we'll talk about that. Lead back to another, you know, with that diagram I showed. Another thing I'm going to add to that is the fact that you're working for your last name, right? So that stake in the ground in Cameroon will be part of that. That last name, right? This is Janak Tanye, you know, laid here. Here's my stake. Right, out of 8 billion people, you put it in the ground. So
yeah, man. So yeah, all this stuff is amazing. I was lucky enough to be in the US for many years, and man, as I get to know my brothers in the US, I see how so much alike we are, and how proud of them I am, you know, one way or another. And I find some of my Haitian brothers, and that was actually one of my goals. I want to go visit Haiti, you know, one of the first Black countries to be independent. In my mind, I feel like, man, this is a place I need to go see. I look at the Jamaicans, everything they're doing. It's really cool. You know, all of these people are basically the same people, you know, and that perseverance, you know, that spirit that Dr. Charlie talked about is something special to behold, and that I'm very, very proud of, for sure.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So
all right,
I think,
my brothers,
I think this is a good one. This is a good one for today.
Yeah.
You know what?
I've been around. I've been around Dr. Charlie for a while, and I see that look he has. So he needs some time now to go in. he just ate some meal, and he's got that satiated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. So my word for the week, you know, I'll stay with this. The honor key. I'll go with honor. Man. All these people that are here with us, you know, listening in the past, future, to honor these people and understand how lucky we are, you know, to be the product of them, to represent them as we represent ourselves and make a difference. So honor.
I'm gonna follow your lead. Honor.
I'm gonna go with one that Dr. Charlie left, and he's a very frugal, or what's the word? It's not frugal, actually. It's very loose with his coins. He drops them out, and we just gotta follow him around and pick up. Anyways, he left a word. He said position. Position. Right? Think about that one. That one, the way we want to leave it is we position. You're positioning Noah. Can you stop him from messing up things? No, but you've positioned him to be great. Right? That's all we're doing right now. I'm positioning my kids to jump off from here. That's all I can do, is I can position you. There's the direction you should be going. I'm out. I positioned you. Now you got to go down that path yourself. I don't know if you will, but I positioned you. So everybody that came before us, that led us here, as you talk about perseverance, they've positioned you to go do. You were positioned. That's why you're leading 120 or 170 or whoever it is. You've been positioned. Now go do it. Go lead. You don't have to. You don't have to, but you've been positioned.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, guys. I wish you an amazing week. Hope you guys enjoyed this. We're here every Sunday, you know, Sunday morning wisdom, peace, love, and soul. Catch us live on YouTube. don't hesitate to comment. We love to, talk to you, communicate with you, share with you, discuss with you. So, guys, I wish you an amazing week. Alvin, Dr. Charlie, I appreciate you guys.
You as well, my brother. Peace,
All
love,
right. And soul.
soul. All right.